Hello, my fellow movie fans, and welcome to another show of Feast of Films Theatre. Today starring Matthew Black and Ethan R. Hill. There, that's the intro.
Oh, yeah. Classic. Classic. What's going on, my fellow movie fans? Welcome to another episode of A Feast of Films. This is episode 15. This is a Feast of Films After Dark because now we are recording After Dark. I'm Matt Black, and with me as always is...
Ethan R. Hill.
What's going on, buddy?
Oh, just living the best life, trying to stay afloat during a pandemic, as well as working, as well as everything else, and making a podcast. So,
That pretty much sums it up. That pretty much sums up the existence of the majority of the people on the planet right now. So, homie, let me say you're not alone. And that's exactly why we've actually taken a little bit of a break. We're back after a small break because, like I was telling you earlier, man, 5 months in a row of Saturdays really messes with a person. I mean, it's surprising. It's surprising, but apparently it does. So getting back into a regular schedule, is a little bit, it's been a little bit tougher on us than maybe we had anticipated. But now we're back. We've acclimatized. I don't know. But we're back.
We'll see if we acclimatize or not. We're figuring it out.
We're good for tonight.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a good video to come back to after our short little pause, and that is talking about Star Wars Episode 3.
That's right.
Our third in our series of Star Wars specials. And honestly, I had trouble taking notes because I was actually watching the movie and actually enjoying myself.
Oh, that's it. See, I thought you were going to go in a different direction. This is an interesting case of a situation of whatever that means.
Are you the opposite?
Not a case of a situation. I don't know what that means, man.
It is an interesting case of a situation. I'm on board for that. I think that makes perfect sense.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, that's very, very interesting.
Like, do you go the opposite way? Like, are you
no, not necessarily. Well, I'm kind of like middle ground on it. I'm trying to decide, just, still within myself as we record this podcast, battle, an eternal great battle between which of the pieces of film in the first trilogies is actually like the better overall package. Because I like episode 3, but as I watched it today, I'm like, I kind of realized I really like the ending, like the dark, as soon as, Mace Windu gets all hacked up, like, I like that, after that, I really like episode 3. Before that, I'm kind of like, I don't know.
See, and I'm almost the opposite. I'm almost the opposite, where, like, a bunch of the stuff, not all of it, because there are still problems throughout it, but, like, a bunch of the stuff leading up to that, I'm on board for. And then everything after that, it kind of loses me a bit. Not because it's not fun to watch, but because it's more so now just like, okay, guys, let's watch to see how many things have to be lined up so that nobody can move in this universe for 20 years until episode 4 starts. Because that's exactly what this movie was.
I kind of get what you're saying there. Like, nobody can freaking move a muscle. Don't you move! You get your ass back on that desert planet.
Well, because when this movie was made, there was no spin-offs, there was no sequels, there was nothing. This was it.
No, there was no Clone Wars, there was nothing, no.
We were maybe... Yeah, like, there was the Clone Wars TV show that took place between episode 2 and 3, and that was about it. And anything that they were talking about doing, like the Clone Wars movie after this, like the
one that went into the CGI one, into the CGI series, yeah.
But nothing at all was planned for between episode 3 and 4.
No.
Nothing. And for some reason, George Lucas translates that as, well, guys, Darth Vader has to be Darth Vader, Yoda has to look exactly like Yoda. I'm surprised they didn't make Obi-Wan's hair white for some reason. He got Force lightninged or something like that, and he looks like Alec Guinness by the end of the movie. That's, like, everything just lines up too perfectly, and that's one of the things that still distracts me from the overall movie. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy the movie, especially a lot more than episode 2. And
Oh yeah, like hands down. Like episode when I'm talking about like which one is the best overall film and package for me, episode 2 is not in that discussion. That is not in that discussion at all.
Well, that's where out of the prequel trilogy for me, I think it is episode 3, because episode 1 still has a lot of problems. And it comes down to, again, how they handled, and I feel bad because it's Jake Lloyd, but it's how they handled Jake Lloyd. It's how they handled Jar Jar. It's how they handled that world. Yeah, it was cool with practical sets, and I loved that, but I don't know, the story too, I find in episode 3 is just more compelling. But I want more of it, right? I want more of the war. I want more of
well, of course,
battle.
yeah.
It's I think we talked about it, where it's if episode 2 was actually episode 1, and then episode 2 was some kind of mishmash of the Clone Wars, and then episode 3 was this movie, I think it would have been a lot better.
I agree. That's kind of one of my feelings too coming out of this film. Just if the original trilogy would have been, not the original, sorry, the prequel trilogy would have just been shuffled around a little bit as far as timeline and when events and when the films took place, I think it just would have been a far better package overall than kind of what we got. A lot of the things in the film, just in general, just my general thoughts, I don't necessarily agree with you on the whole, everything was just placed so precisely to line up with the trilogy, the original trilogy coming. I feel like that's a nitpick, I think, that bugs you. It doesn't bug me really at all. The thing that bugs me is how unprecise some of those things are and how inconsistent some of those things are with the original trilogy. There's things that happen. Okay, here's an example. Okay, so Leia's oh yeah, I remember my mother. She was kind and loving. And I was like, homie, wait, what? There's no way she remembered her mother, let alone her mother's personality, unless she force visioned her from outside the womb. Okay. And that's one of the things that and that drives me nuts, because that isn't a thing that was oh, the original trilogy was made after. The original trilogy was already there. That line was already there. It's that's maybe something we could have thought and accounted for. And again, I think that's one of those things though with the overall package of it and where these films were placed. Because by the time you actually get to Luke and Leia, you gotta wrap that up quick. You don't have time to have these moments there.
But that being said, that line, people misconstrued that line and they think that it's about Padme. But I don't think it is.
I think they make it pretty clear that it is, though. Maybe obviously non-pretense, but he didn't ask her about her mother. He said your real mother.
No, and that's the line that gets confusing, because Leia doesn't, as far as we know, Leia doesn't know that she's adopted.
Perhaps.
Possibly in that conversation.
Maybe she does, though. Maybe they're implying she does.
Well, and that's the thing. That's where it's overall, that scene is confusing, regardless of the prequel context.
Though. Yeah.
That scene is confusing. Because at no point in time do they establish that Leia finds out she's adopted, or that Luke would even know that she's adopted. So him asking her that question right out of or that they're both adopted. You can assume Luke would talk about that, because Luke...
No, Luke knows. Luke knows she's his sister at that point.
No, Luke knows she's...
his sister,
that's his sister. She doesn't know.
Yeah.
So why is he asking her this? Luke is just being a jerk and is basically planning to traumatize his sister, because it's your real mother, and her reaction should have been what do you mean, my real mother?
That's true. That's very observant. Yeah.
And basically, without batting an eye, she's oh, well, obviously. And that's why I think probably, and we don't see her in any other thing, there's a chance that Senator Organa's, I might have butchered that pronunciation. It's late.
Organa, no, you're right.
Yeah. His wife could have died when Padme when Leia was young.
Yeah.
So
That's
to
true.
me, that's
For all
where
we
it's
know.
like, yeah, like, and that's where it gets really weird. And I think that's what George was going for. I think that's what he was going for. But at the same time,
Well, I guess, yeah, I guess when you talk about that, I mean, that's just like one example, but there are just like a couple things that don't like quite line up exactly. But
I
again,
don't
it's
know,
not
man.
necessarily with the thing. Okay, well, here's like
They're on a
another
Star
example,
Destroyer
like
watching the Death
Obi-Wan.
Star get built.
Okay, yeah, so it takes 20 years to build the Death Star. What's the big deal, guys? And then they built the second one in like what? Like, a handful of
I have a
years.
theory.
I'm assuming
about
they're
that, though,
already
too.
building the second one.
I thought, like, yeah, like the first
That's
one
what
that we
you'd
see
assume.
in episode 4 is like a prototype. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, let's build it on a small scale first and see if this works. And then in the meantime, it's like, okay, we'll keep building the big one. That way, if we goof up on the small one, we can at least make tweaks to the big one without having to worry about.
And if you're like a super evil overlord, why wouldn't you want 2 planet destroying weapons? That just makes sense. So yeah,
And
no, I
then-
always
and
assumed
then-
the second one was already in some sort of production.
The First Order gets super economical about it, and they make one weapon that destroys multiple planets. And there we go, escalation, man.
Like
Escalation.
classic into a planet. Classic.
Like, you were saying with Obi-Wan there was a problem though.
Oh, I was just saying that like he had a really rough 20 years, man. Like that's all I'm saying in the desert. Cuz like one of the funniest things to me, and I used to remember these guys' ages, and I think I had it like pinned down because of those novels we were talking about, like Jedi Apprentice and Jedi Quest. Those old ones. I'm pretty sure they had their ages in there. So you could like just do the math and figure out where they were. And I think Obi-Wan was like what, 33, early 30s or something by the time
like
episode
something by the
time episode 3. So then episode 4, the guy's like early 50s and he looks like he's at least 65. I'm like and he's walking like he's really old, which is like fair because at the time Obi-Wan was supposed to be really old. But again, it goes into like the whole package and the idea that you're, building.
Well, like, so I guess it's less about, to me, it's less about necessarily things like that and more so just like the right character. The characters all have to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, so that they're just right in the right place still to pluck them in there.
Well, it's like do you think Darth Vader needed to be in the suit by the end of episode 3, or do you think we could have seen the beginnings of the suit?
No. Like, clearly over the original trilogy, like, that suit did not change design a lot. Like, there's little tweaks here and there, but, like, the overall design and aesthetic of it was the same, right? So I assume that's just kind of his... But that's just his suit.
And to me, I think having Darth Vader show up at the end was 100% just fan bait. 100% like, the moment you've all been waiting for, and when he's in Darth Vader...
Well, that's kind of it, yeah.
Like,
but, like, isn't that the whole point of the prequel trilogy? Isn't, like, that kind of, like, the whole thing?
It's the journey to see him become Darth Vader, but Darth Vader isn't the suit. Darth Vader is the man in the suit. And technically, we see that by the time that Palpatine creepily makes him into Vader.
Yeah, we see that, yeah.
So, arguably, the suit didn't need...
But the suit's an iconic part of Vader, though. Like, that's what makes Vader Vader in the original trilogy. That was the thing that made him stand out above majority of villains. Like, he was so goddamn intimidating. Like, the suit was a huge part of that.
Think about it, basically, Darth Vader's journey is the exact opposite of Iron Man's journey in the Marvel, the trilogy. Because, like, by the end, it's like Iron Man learns, like, he is not the suit. He himself is Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, in this context, Darth Vader is the suit.
He's like, without the suit, I'm dead. Literally.
Well, without the suit, actually, that's the whole thing, though, is he is Anakin underneath. I guess that's another thing, too.
That's what they discover in episode 6.
Yeah. We're jumping ahead of ourselves.
Oh, way ahead. How will we get down this path? Classic as always. Just wandering off. Anyway...
No, we're still talking about Star Wars.
We're still talking about episode 3 because we're just deciding like what parts are like, good. Not necessarily good or bad, but just our overall thoughts at the end of the day. But yeah, no, like I just thought I didn't think it like tied it up quite as nice, but like I get what you're saying, like every character being in their specific locations or places, and everything just to like, okay, let's just chill for 20 years till the time is right. But I feel like for the fans and for the people watching, like, it's not the most narratively creative decision to do that, but I think that's just what people would expect. And if you were like, Obi-Wan's gonna hang out on, like, Felucia, and then people would be like, why is he on Tatooine though? Like, you just know there'd be people who would be like, at some point he went to Tatooine to look after Luke. Like, it just,
Well,
I
again,
felt
in the
like he had to
context-
do that. I felt like he had to do that. He didn't really have
in the
much of a
context
choice.
of it too, again, where there's not going to be anything else. It makes sense. Like it makes sense in 2005 when this movie came out. It made sense that the characters were going to be there and where they needed to be because again, we weren't going to get anything else. But like, so for the Obi-Wan series, is it going to just be a series of him on Tatooine for 20 years?
Well, they even had the books and stuff too. There were like a couple Obi-Wan books that took place in between 3 and 4, and he did leave the planet.
I was gonna say like he should be able to leave, like as long as he's able to come back and like watch Luke.
Well, yeah, like what is he gonna sit on a hill and just watch this kid for 20 years? Like that'll be a long ass.
With some,
it's just a long ass 20 years, man. No wonder Uncle Owen was just like, God damn this guy, like goddamn Obi-Wan Kenobi, creeping on my farm.
You can't talk to that man. He's weird.
He's weird. Nice. He just creeps on us.
Then it makes that casting for the Family Guy parodies makes sense then.
Indeed.
You must go to the Dagobah system.
God, I hate that guy. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, let's get into let's kind of guess our overall thoughts, kind of where we're sitting. You really enjoyed overall like the film, I guess.
Yep, I had a good time watching it, man.
And I'm still kind of like 50-50. And I think the parts that we liked, what we're getting from each other in this early bit of the conversation here, is I'm more pro one half, you're more pro the other half of the film. Would that be
honestly,
accurate?
Like, yeah, like I think it literally, it's just because of how, and like we'll get into it more, but it's definitely how the fall happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sloppy, and like that just kind of like takes me out of it. But like leading up to it, like yeah, it's just a fun adventure movie. But like, I don't know why every single one of these movies every single one of these movies that's supposed to lead up and build up this great friendship of Obi-Wan and Anakin is just dead set on separating them.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, that's
like even I've been watching we haven't watched it for a while, but we were watching the Clone Wars, and in the first season, like Obi-Wan and Anakin don't do a lot of missions together. It's a lot of Obi-Wan it's a lot of
Anakin
and
like
Ahsoka, which makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. But then, like, yes, we're good friends, but only when the cameras aren't rolling.
There you go. That's the trick.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's get into this. Let's start off. Star Wars Episode 3. Let's start off right at the beginning here. Opening crawl, opening sequence, the battle above Coruscant.
The flight, the CG of that actually really holds up, and like a lot of like there's some CG that doesn't throughout the movie, but like honestly, like that opening sequence, like that dogfight leading up to them getting into
the ship,
the ship is still super tight and super awesome. Like
and
I loved it.
And that's one of the first things you notice about this film too, especially compared to Episode 2 specifically, that the CGI holds up much better a couple years later. Like they've done a considerably better job creating these ships, creating these worlds, creating this big battle that's going on overhead. They've done a considerably better job at it.
And in 3 years.
Like yeah.
That's
3 years. 3 years difference, yeah.
Like that's
how fast it jumps. Especially back then, it was jumping in leaps and bounds all the time.
But like even just the way the action moves, the camera moves, all the extra, like anything that we have with like there being a fight, I just get like really, really, really excited. Like anything where it's like just a big battle, like throughout. Like we can talk about all the battles going throughout, but even like the space battle, the Kashyyyk one.
Yeah.
Anytime you see droids and clones going at it, I get excited and happy. Like,
well, yeah, and like you said, like even the cinematography, like I love how the two starfighters come, right, and they fly over the big Venator starship, And then they do kind of like this barrel roll spin, and then underneath this ship is like this whole big space battle that's going on that was previously hidden. I really liked just kind of how they introduced even the space battle and the cinematography and the shots and the choreography, I guess, at the end of the day behind it. It was really well done. Really well done. And that's kind of where you get your first interaction and a little bit of banter back and forth between Anakin and Obi-Wan. You can see there's a bit of an evolution in their relationship compared to episode 2 Anakin and Obi-Wan. This one just seems a bit more, I don't know, they're a bit more brotherly, I guess, in this dialogue, kind of back and forth. And that's kind of what they're trying to establish. Instead of so much master and apprentice, it's kind of a little bit more, they're on equal footing, I would say.
No, 100%. And like you can tell it even just by how they talk to each other from the get-go. Like,
and you can already see a huge improvement in Hayden Christensen's acting, like compared to Anakin episode 2 to Anakin episode 3. Like there is a considerable difference, even just like the tone of the character and how he speaks. Like it's a lower tone, like it's less whiny. You know what I mean? Like it isn't like just whiny with everything he says. It's a better take.
There's more of a playful banter between the two of them too. Like with like even with as much as he's calling Obi-Wan Master still, it's more of like,
well, they all do that though, right? Like
well, because I mean Obi-Wan calls Master Yoda
Master
Yoda,
still,
so,
yeah.
But like it's super like, even in that the whole flying, I love Obi-Wan in that flying scene. I love him just because flying is for droids.
Yeah,
I think that's actually a line from episode 2, but the sentiment carries over.
Yeah.
Like, no, like even the buzz droids. Like I know a lot of people hated the buzz droids, but I like that concept of a bomb that basically explodes into a bunch of droids that are gonna rip your ship apart, and you can't do anything about it because you're in space.
Yeah, you can't just like get out and cut them up.
No, like it's like that was cool. That was a cool concept, and I think that's another thing that slightly bugs me though, is that the ships you slowly see turn into the ships that are gonna be in episode 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I kind of get how you were saying that last time.
That doesn't proto X-wings.
Yeah,
and then the Jedi Starfighters have now morphed into proto TIE fighters.
Very similar. Yeah. Well, the only reason they could also be somewhat they're kind of like a hybrid between A-wings and TIE fighters, just because of the little flaps on the side, right? And the sound they make, and like they shoot green, obviously. But like to me, that stuff doesn't bother me. I find it actually like interesting because, especially when you're in the world of Star Wars and you're in this universe that has like obviously probably various huge amounts of different manufacturers. You would think it's like. It drives me nuts, just make a point to make this point, that in the sequel trilogy, that like they just have the same damn ships. I'm like, homie, it's been like 30 years and you guys are still using the same damn things with slight variations. Well, whereas here you see more of an evolution between an idea and a concept to kind of like what its form becomes. And that's okay with me because you had the Republic, it became the Empire, there's a shift in power, they're probably changing up a lot of ships. And, you know, like it to me, something like that works because as time progresses, we have different models and different looks and different things. Like if you took a Camaro from 20 years ago and Camaro today, it's like, yes, in general, like they're pretty close to the same, but there's definitely vast differences.
I think the better way to look at it, though, instead of cars, would specifically be looking at it as warships. So look at like jet fighters.
Sure.
And look at fighters from... Yeah. So if we're going to base it on modern times, let's say from now to the 80s. So we'll give 40 years, right? And the fighters from the 80s that I see in like Top Gun and stuff do still look pretty similar to the ones now, design-wise, I think. I'm not a weapons expert. I think I know people who would know a bit more. But if you look at jets from the 80s to the 40s, and you look at like the planes and the evolution of like the ships that fought then, they're vastly different. There's more of a difference in that original trilogy era or that 40-year era than there is in the sequel era or the next 40 years, right? So like, that could possibly be an argument where like maybe
they're just like at a time of, well, and it would make sense if you're going from this republic that's been around for like, you know, thousands and thousands of years to this new galactic empire. Like, obviously, it's a time of vast changing of organization, of leadership, of structure, of the style of, type of vehicles that the empire and stuff is going to use and design and create and build and all those types of things, yada, yada, yada. Big changes create big changes also probably in technology and the way they're used and applied. So that would make sense. Whereas, the empire is destroyed and you got this new republic growing, but it's still a baby. Yeah, their resistance probably is going to use older ships left over. More or less the idea is probably somewhat the same. And I guess the First Order even had, like, even from a narrative standpoint, they are the remnants of the empire, right? It's going to make sense if they have similar type technology.
Well, like, that's the thing, like, this is probably a conversation for the sequel trilogies, but, like, that's always something that kind of did bug me about the First Order, is that they seem to have too much power for essentially being, like...
remnants?
The new rebels, basically. Like, if you think about it, the Rebel Alliance was just a ragtag group of people, and that's what the Resistance was, because they were technically underground and not funded by the Republic.
Yeah.
But who is funding the First Order?
Snoke, I guess. Who walks around in his golden robe. Oh, wait, never mind. I forgot. Snoke is a clone. So good point.
Palpatine the entire time.
Palpatine is clearly loaded. He's just still funding shit.
Look, I still enjoy Rise of Skywalker, but I do admit it is a hot mess. But I still enjoy it.
God. Anyway, don't even get me started on Rise of Skywalker. But no, I get what you're saying with like the ships and stuff like that, though.
And, like, I think it's cool. I just get confused when it's, like, so the Jedi, who are the good guys, are flying the TIE Fighter-like things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the clones, who are the bad guys, are fighting the X-Wing things. Why do the Stormtroopers have the TIE Fighter things, and the Rebels have the X-Wing? Like,
yeah, just where the designs ended up.
Switched.
Fair enough.
And, like, and to me, but it still works. Like, it's still unique to that movie because you can see inklings and ideas for those ships,
and that's what I like to see, and especially like prequels and stuff. Because if you're gonna do those things, you might as well. You don't need to have like a straight up like, look, this is exactly the same thing, but like have those ideas start coming together. Because even those, like, the ARC 170 starfighters, wow, that sounds pretty nerdy. That's from playing Battlefront. That's the only reason I know that, okay? I don't actually, like, know those things all the time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, okay, buddy.
Say,
okay. But, like, even those, like, their X-foils were very small, right? Like, when they went to X-Wing kind of mode, and they still had the main two lines. They just had, like, these little flaps that, like, opened up on the side. So it was, like, the idea of the X-Wing, but it wasn't even, like, anywhere near... close to, you got like the hints of it in the idea of what it eventually would be, but
it's, in all honesty, the big thing that hints with the TIE Fighter looking ones is just that it's the ball cockpit with the
little side things and the side, like the little.
Well, and it's
I get what you're saying too.
Shaped,
yeah,
right? Where
the
it's
window.
like the circle and like the essentially the Empire symbol, but on a TIE. It's really weird. They designed their windows to look like their logo, which is who I want to meet the designer of the Empire.
Who does that? No doubt.
The Hugo Boss of the Star Wars universe. That's who did it. But like overall though, still like that, like just that fight, that scene was interesting to watch. Even seeing things like they started to build the inklings and the ideas of, which I already used that phrase before. Wow, that's why we shouldn't do podcasts at night, but it's our only option.
Well, we got to work with what we got.
Exactly. But the cool thing is that you start seeing even Anakin have a relationship with the clones. Like you see his reaction, well, not super visceral or anything like that, when they started getting killed and the ships behind them, being like, I need to go back and I need to save them. I need to help them. You can see that. You can see that these guys have been fighting for a while. You get the idea that they've been war buddies for a while, right?
Yeah. And there are like little hints here and there that these guys have been at war for 3 years, right? There's little hints here and there where it would be like, are you guys really acting like you've been at war for 3 years? Like, there's just kind of like, I found like little, I don't know if it's not really an inconsistency, but just little tonal things that kind of bug me. Because sometimes, like you said, the moment where he's like, I gotta go save these clones. I'll be right back. Like he actually cares about them now. To later on just interactions with other characters, like even Mace Windu and himself. It's kind of like they're like obviously they're not on great terms in this film, and that was set up to set up his ultimate fall at the end of the day. Um, but it's like you feel like these guys should be a little bit more closer connected after 3 years of fighting together, or Anakin maybe shouldn't be like, oh, it's such a dishonor. I'm not part of the council. Like he's just actually that brings to a point another thing I was thinking about, but I'll save that for a little bit later in the podcast, which would actually help my point there. So I don't want to like discredit my own damn points here as they come up, but I just felt like again we're talking about that trilogy package, and again if episode 2 would have been like somewhere around episode 1, 2 would have been the Clone Wars, 3 would have been Revenge. It just would have been like perfect, man. Like just 100%. We needed something in the middle that like connected all these characters, because it's like we're seeing these events, but we're seeing them through such small lenses and just like pinpoint in time, where there's 3 years of history, and it's not 3 years of just like there's 10 years between 1 and 2. Those 10 years are less important than the 3 years between 2 and 3, because between 1 and episode 2, they're just like hanging out, man. They're just doing their Jedi thing. He's learning stuff. That's all good. But between 2 and 3, it's like there's a war going on. Like there's things happening, and it's good that we got the Clone Wars series, but it doesn't like it. You can't just go back afterwards and be like, oh, here's everything that happened, when clearly there wasn't really a solid idea at the time when the film was being made. But
it's even with Grievous, right? Like I love General Grievous so much.
Yeah.
But he should have been in more than just one movie.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have just been in episode 3. Like that's problematic, because you have this really cool character. Like even if you would have made him like, because he's not a Jedi, but like you have Darth Maul throughout all 3, and you have General Grievous as like his soldier, like he does the dirty work for him,
and that's kind of what it was. But like you never got to see that, right? Like you see it in the Clone Wars more, but you don't really get to see it in the films, and that is just kind of again, there's so many things in the prequel trilogy, and especially in this film that I was watching, where it's like I love the concept, just the execution didn't quite.
But I want
land.
More.
But exactly, and maybe that's just the mastery of it all. Is just the whole trilogy was one big ass tease. Thanks, George. Thanks, Georgie boy. Thanks.
So
anyway, moving on.
How did you feel once they get on the ship? Unless you had more points about the space battle.
No, the space battle was just in general was pretty good. Like they didn't do too much battling except the droids themselves for the most part, but like the visuals of it were really interesting. And then
Stunning, right?
Yeah, and then I guess all the other things we talked about since then. Once they actually get on the ship, it's like again for me this is like a movie with like not two stories, but it's a story of two films. Like there's one part of the film, then there's a second part, like, and it's a drastic shift, right?
There's a drastic tonal shift as well, and I think that's because again it's supposed to be a kids movie. Like that's the argument for it, but like the beginning there's so much comedy.
Yeah.
And then the end, there's absolutely none. Like, it's completely void by the end of it.
Like, there is the one thing that I've always hated about this film, always, since the first time I saw it, is the droid voices. I absolutely cannot handle the voices of the droids and how they speak like children. It drives me up the freaking wall in a movie where it implies a Jedi literally killed children. Like, yet these droids speak like kids. Maybe that was just training to teach Anakin it's okay to kill kids. I don't know what the point was there, but listen, that design choice was terrible. The super battle droid voices were so obnoxious. The normal battle droid voices were so obnoxious. There are just things in this film there are just things in here that are just completely obnoxious. And that's the best word for it. Because in episode 2 and episode 1, listen, the droids talk then too, but it was Roger, Roger. Like it made sense. It wasn't in the way. It wasn't ridiculous. This one, they're like, and you're like, oh my God, dude, shut up. Like, who changed the voices? It drives me nuts.
So actually, we're gonna disagree on this. We're gonna disagree.
Oh
on this
my
point
god!
Because
how can you disagree with me on this?
I love the evolution of the droids.
I hate it
because
droids don't need to evolve, man.
Droids are sentient creatures that deserve more respect in Star Wars universe.
Not these ones. They're annoying as hell.
Episode 1, I enjoyed them because the Roger thing was fun.
Roger.
Like even the whole like the droid where it's trying to figure out and trying to process what's going on when they're like, we're taking these prisoners to Coruscant. You're taking them to where? Coruscant. Coruscant. Wait. That doesn't compute. You're under arrest.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
I like that.
Now put the voices from episode 2, 3 in there. That would have been horrible.
Episode 2, they started to have a bit more personality and emote a bit more, which you mainly see with the one that gets like mixed up with 3PO. There's a bit more of that, and then by this one, they're just soldiers. They just became soldiers, and I agree the voice choice probably could have been a bit designed better, but I like that they actually have personality
compared to just nothing. Well, yeah, like they're just
because it makes them a more interesting bad guy.
It scares you. Like, shut up, stupid ass.
Well, like
droid.
Yeah, like moments like that didn't need to be in there, but like when R2 is on his own and like the 2 super battle droids are out there, it's like, oh, those are Jedi starfighters, all right.
Yeah. What was that? Stupid astromech. I'm like, you're stupid. I honestly hate that so much though. Like I thought that whole segment could have been so much better if the droids would just shut the hell up. Like, honestly, that almost ruins that whole segment for me because I can't, like, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me. That's what it is. I wouldn't mind personality. Personality's okay, but like just their voices and the way they choose to express that personality was where I like just could not deal with it. I was like, nah, man. Nah, this is annoying.
I still like it because even when you go back to the Clone Wars series now too, I really enjoy seeing that evolution there too. I like seeing that they're more interesting to watch than just being blank slates, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, I didn't need them to be more interesting. I need them to just get chopped up by a lightsaber. That was their job.
They do that. They do that too. And again, you do.
They like, just don't do it quietly enough.
we can both admit the whole reason that was added was to add comedy to it because of the ending.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. It wasn't done well.
No, that's fair. I can accept your feelings on that.
Yeah. How'd you feel about the lightsaber fight with Dooku, Anakin, and Obi-Wan Part 2, or maybe 3, or maybe 4? Who knows?
Look, they do Obi-Wan so dirty in that fight.
You're telling me, man.
So up to this day, like I was watching it, and it's just like, it's the one weird shot is when he's walking up the stairs just at a brisk jog, and like the droids are shooting at him, and he's like
barely deflecting, like
not getting hit, and then he just like. So he can do that. Like, it's a weird shot, but it's like, okay, he's pretty powerful. But then immediately they're fighting, and then Dooku gets him with just like a force push, and just like, oh, and then there goes Obi-Wan, and his legs should have been crushed.
Oh yeah, like the way that whole platform. It like lands on him and then like squishes him, like it slides a bit. It's like that would have tore like the meat off your bones, man. Like it should have pinned your ankle and then just ripped all your leg right up. But
they have force healing.
Yeah, I guess so. Jedi.
Hey, by the end of it, they do say his fate will be the same as theirs, and they are right. By the end of episode 9, all 3 of those guys are
all dead.
Yeah,
Palpatine even died twice.
I also noticed in that fight scene that fight scene literally describes the entire movie. And it's Anakin saying, I shouldn't do this, and then he just does it.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
It's literally this entire movie.
That sums that up, yeah.
I shouldn't do the thing, and then does the thing.
It's foreshadowing.
Like, anything Anakin, I shouldn't go after them to stop Palpatine. I should let Mace Windu deal with that.
No, I'll go anyway. I shouldn't chop off Mace Windu's arm. F it.
I'm gonna do it.
I'm doing it anyway.
Hey, Mace, we shouldn't kill him. We should arrest him. No, I'm going to join him now.
I am also now a Sith. Wow, this escalated quickly. Like,
Yep.
that's... Anyway, we'll get to that part. But no, I hear what you're saying.
I like the fight with Dooku to a point. I do think it's weird that like he essentially let Anakin kill him without being like, hey, that's Sith Lord over there. Like I've seen a video online where someone like made a sketch of that where it's like Palpatine says do it and the guy's like, oh yeah, do it, okay. That's the Sith Lord you're looking for. That's Darth Sidious. Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
But also, would you say that this movie is the most memeable of all three films?
Probably. I mean, Anakin says some pretty cringy stuff in episode 2, but this one just has more moments that are just kind of like,
dude, that scene right there, we get do it.
Oh yeah, that one happens all the time. Yeah, I agree too. Yeah.
Okay, and that's another thing. We were talking about this recently. What is Palpatine's real voice? What is his real voice? Is it him talking in the senator voice normal, or is it the Sith voice?
Because, I would say it's the Sith voice.
Because you could. Well, that's
all part of the ploy. Yeah.
That's weird.
No, well,
that's bizarre, and you
you're
can't say that the
right.
Force lightning.
You're right. It's weird to figure out what is that. I mean, the voice that is used most often in the films would be his Sith voice, right? He uses it in 6 the whole time. Now he uses it in 9 the whole time. And then obviously the back half of 3, and then parts of the way through.
And that's the way they set it up.
Yeah.
They set it up to be that his voice was caused by the Force lightning, by the damage, that hurt him, except for moments like "do it" and "I am the Senate," and like all these other moments where he suddenly slides into.
Well, there's also this like other theory, because one of the things the dark side does is it corrupts the body, right? Like it deforms and destroys the body, the person that it's in. That's part of like its effect. So one of the main theories is, and I don't know which one's actually true or which one's canon or not so much that the lightning damaged him and deformed him, but it just revealed like his true self. Like the rest of it was just like a guise, right? Like it was more or less a disguise for his like Senate form kind of thing. Like he used the Force to cover up and, his obviously Sith look. Which was true, because like clearly he hid himself from as being a Sith from right under the Jedi's noses the whole damn time he was on Coruscant, like the whole damn time. And he was a senator for how long before he became chancellor? I don't know. No, like
see, I'd be on board. I'd be on board with that theory.
That's one of the ideas.
I'd be on board with that idea more if the film didn't blatantly have the lightning reflecting back onto him.
Yeah. But the idea is like the lightning like revealed his true like form, right?
I don't know. I think I like the Force corruption idea more, where it's like maybe when he used the lightning finally, that's what did actually corrupt him, and maybe not have him because like the jumping ahead, but like his makeup at the end is kind of silly. It's one of those things that we have to have Palpatine look exactly like he looks like in Episode 6, and it's like,
but slightly different. Different. He looks more like Play-Doh.
No, he looks wrong, but then he looks the exact same as in Episode 5 now, because,
Oh, yeah, because that would make sense. No, I mean, don't take the look of the Emperor from Episode 6. No, we'll just take him from 20 years back. And then he just aged really terribly in the last 2 years. Like, yeah.
And that's where it doesn't make... And then he looks surprisingly really good in Episode 9. That's a whole other
for thing. A dead man.
Like, was it that hard to like replicate the makeup from Episode 6?
I don't know.
Like, but it's the same thing with the Yoda thing. It's the same thing with Yoda's puppet has never looked the same in any movie that the puppet is shown.
Yeah, no, there's definitely variations there.
Like even from episode 5 to 6, he looks different.
Yeah.
And then Episode 8, he looks different, and it's like, is it really this hard, guys?
One
Is
was
it
the
really
worst
this...
though. The puppet in the old one, like that again. We talked about this. That was a good CGI replacement. Like that was a good call
100%.
because that puppet was ugly as butt. Like,
Well, could you,
dude, like how? Like I get you're trying to make him younger, but you made him look like he got hit with an ugly stick. Like not even hit once. Like he got beat half to death with an ugly stick. Like what were you guys doing? Like,
could you imagine
that
that
design was
Yoda
horrendous.
Imagine that Yoda trying to do all the stuff they had Yoda do in episode 2 and 3. Like even the lightsaber fights, like you have this weird, like you'd have to have this like weird, like Muppet-esque setup where like things are just kind of cutting off like half the frame, so you just have like this puppet just like
it would be
going across the screen.
Or worse yet, could you imagine if they like digitally put like that episode 1 puppet into like episode 5 and 6 and just like this ugly ass Yoda? I'd be like, I would lose, man. People would riot. People would riot.
People already have, man. Like
people would riot more. That would be crossing the line. You don't F with Yoda. What's wrong with you guys? Anyway, the CGI model is much better than that episode 1 puppet was. That was horrendous.
Also, previous to the fight, or it's never mind. It's post the fight. It's when they're running through the hallways, and this leads to them getting captured by Grievous.
Right.
It's still, I quote it on a regular basis, and I love the line so much. Is when they get caught in like the whatever shield,
the ray shields, yeah.
Obi-Wan, how could this happen? We're smarter than this. And I'm like, I feel that on like a deep emotional level. Anytime something happens, it's like, how did this happen?
We're smarter than this. Like I understand that so deeply. Like that's just story of my life, man.
It's relatable. And
yeah.
Then, how do you feel about Grievous's first appearance? How do you feel about
listen, again, like Grievous is one of those things where it's like I really, really enjoy the concept, especially later on in the film, and we'll talk about that, especially when we get to the fight. I really, really like the concept of Grievous. The execution was all right. Obviously, he was very underused, and to the point that he might as well not have existed. Like, and this is where I have a hard time with the villains, quote unquote, of episode 3. Because like I'm like, why do we have to kill Dooku off so soon? So that Grievous could be around for a whole nother 10 minutes? Like if that, like for a whole nother 3 minutes of screen time? Why not have Grievous and keep Christopher Lee around for a little while longer? That would have been way more intriguing, because you kept him alive at episode 2 to kill him off 3 minutes, 10 minutes into episode 3. Like I'm just saying, it would have made more sense to me to not have Grievous than to have Dooku keep going. Like it just would have made it cleaner. Like it was just a little bit messy. I felt both characters were underused to what their potential was.
Why couldn't there have been multiple? Like the thing is, each villain played a different part. But why couldn't we have had multiple villains throughout the trilogy?
Yeah.
You have Darth Maul being his top assassin. Okay, cool. Then he has Count Dooku, who is his money guy, because Count Dooku and someone who
he's kind of more of like his like political rally person. Yeah. He rallied up all the other people, yeah.
Well, Count Dooku, I want to say in canon, Count Dooku is also like stupid rich.
I can't remember if he is or not.
I want to say he is, because he's a count, right?
Well, yeah, that would make sense. 1, 2 separatists, 3 separatists.
Three children Anakin killed. But like, and then you have Grievous being your military guy, and you could even had like Grievous pre-armor. You could have actually had what Grievous was, and then you could have the accident in there, and you could almost see like the Grievous scene would be like a proto Darth Vader suit thing.
Oh yeah, like Grievous could have been an episode, like part of episode 2. Like in Coruscant, he could have like
all 3 of them could have been part of episode 1.
Yeah,
like even if it was just like a small cameo or small role, they all could have been there throughout.
And well, I think did we talk about this last time we talked about Star Wars? I can't remember, but I always thought it would have been an interesting idea to have Dooku in episode 1. and like just so you could like establish this relationship between this character and Qui-Gon. So when Qui-Gon dies, it's like, oh, it's understandable that Dooku would like, you know, turn to this kind of like decision when it came to the Jedi Council and stuff. I felt we talked about it.
Yeah, we did, and you know, actually would have been really cool as well. So say Darth Maul doesn't die in Episode 1, and you have Count Dooku, who, you know, you're saying he leaves, and you could even have, again, General Grievous just makes a cameo appearance at the end. So you have Dooku, like there's that moment in that line where Yoda and Yoda and Mace Windu say that there's always two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no more, no less. There's always two. And then you have a scene similar to that of Episode 2, where Dooku then flies and gets off of his sail thing, and there's Darth Maul and Darth Sidious, and he goes and stands by them, and then Grievous walks into frame as well, and you see the beginning of this, like, force that's going to fight against the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a band of compelling villains that are going to take on the Jedi in a way that they couldn't do before when there was just the rule of two.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting. That would have been just better, and a better use for the villains, because we get to know them. We actually get to see
their development. And if you didn't want to, if you choose to keep the rule of two active, Dooku, like Grievous obviously isn't a Sith. Dooku didn't necessarily have to be a Sith either. He didn't have to be Sidious's apprentice. Like, if you wanted to do an idea like that, there's ways around the rule of two while keeping the rule of two intact.
Well, the rule of two has been broken so many times because everyone trying to betray everybody else,
and then try to kill the other person who's training them. Like,
and then there's Sidious,
secret
who just
apprentices.
He just likes to let all of his apprentices die and then find new ones.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick.
It's funny.
That's kind of his point, I guess.
His new apprentice was basically an older man.
Yeah. I need this older guy. You're my apprentice now, okay, bitch? At the end of the day...
trained British actor. How dare you?
At the end of
I fought in the war.
They're both sirs, though. So that's fair. They not? Yeah.
I think so.
Yes. Christopher Lee's a knight. So is Ian McDermott.
Is he?
Oh, wait, no. Is he? Sir Ian McDermott? I can't remember.
Is it Sir Ian McDermott? Or is it just Ian McDermott?
It might just be Ian McDermott. I was thinking of Ian McKellen for a second. Then I was like, wait, that's a different guy.
And then I think Ian Holm was also Sir.
God damn, all these Ians. I guess Ian is the name to be. But at the end of the day, my main point is, when it comes to Dooku, when it comes to Grievous, underused. And again, that brings us back to like the whole, I guess, maybe even theme of this podcast and this idea today is like, we love the concepts, like the characters. We just want more. We just wanted more. And I get it. There's only so much you can do in a film. I get it. So then again, it just goes to beg the question, like, why introduce the characters in the first place? But they have grown to become very iconic. Like, even, General Grievous is a fan favorite among many, many people. Like, he's not my favorite, but he is among many, many people. So maybe that's just the point, too, to give people, like, just other characters they can enjoy and love in this weird universe.
The weird one. Do they ever explain in the Clone Wars TV show why General Grievous coughs by the third episode, or is he just always coughing?
I can't remember. I remember in the first animated Clone Wars they did, the one that was more like the 2D, that. Which was like really cool. It was a really cool little series. They had like Mace Windu like force like crush his chest pretty much, which was pretty cool.
I thought that made sense.
Which made sense, yeah.
Man, I wish.
Then they did the CG one, and I don't know. I don't think they ever did anything about that.
I don't think I've talked about it, but there's a character from the Clone Wars TV show called Dirge, who I love, and he's like a bounty hunter, but he's like this weird alien. Like, he wears a suit of armor that contains him.
Oh, okay.
But he actually has like a bunch of like weird tentacles, and it's like super cool. And I wish they would have brought him into like the main movies, but like I don't think they had the CG for that at the time,
and probably not.
Apparently he doesn't really exist in canon anymore, and it just makes me really
upset. Is that the guy from the first Clone Wars series?
Yeah, the Clone Wars.
Yeah, the one Obi-Wan was fighting.
Yeah,
the goo
one
guy.
Obi-Wan explodes.
Yeah. That guy was pretty sick.
I want more of him though. That's the
Yeah.
problem with it. So like, I'm gonna be honest with you. So we're gonna kind of have to like, this is where we're gonna get interesting. I don't know how many notes you have, but like, this is about the point where I forgot to take notes. Basically, from this point on to like around the Darth Plagueis scene,
Okay.
I completely forgot to take notes because I got distracted.
Fair enough.
That being said, though, the romance did not get better.
Dude, like, and that's the other thing, like, so you have the segment where they go and they rescue Palpatine. You know, most of that was pretty good. Again, I thought some of the characters were underused. The droids were annoying. They landed the ship. Another happy landing.
Another happy landing.
Right? That was a great line. Like, give it to Ewan McGregor, man. He's got this thing. He's got it.
Yeah. I liked the crash. I thought that was fun. Like,
yeah, no, that was pretty. That was well. Again, the CG holds up for that, man. The CG holds up. It's great.
Them running down the elevator shaft where it just won't figure out which way it wants to go.
Yeah, and then it just switches again. It's like, damn it. Yeah, no, that was good. But yeah, then when you get like to Padme and the Anakin relationship, before I get into the relationship, I just want to make
right in the.
What's that?
They just start hugging and kissing right in the middle of.
Oh yeah, right in the middle. Like, so the idea is they've been hiding this so well for 3 years, and clearly they're not even trying at this point, and no one's caught on. So everyone in the galaxy is clearly a moron.
Padme is really pregnant.
Like, she's quite preggers at that point. I saw a parody that was, man, I can't. It was on YouTube, and it was very, very funny. It was way back, like years ago, I can't remember what it was called. I'd have to Google it, but there's some really funny things. Even like, we still reference it sometimes, and it was like, oh, it's clear written here in purple crayon. It's Obi-Wan Kabuzi. He drinks and stuff. It's like, it's just this really bad spoof. Anyway, Padme's like, I'm Priggers. And he's like, how do you know? And then they go to like a wide shot of them standing there, and she's literally got like this probably huge beach ball underneath, like just massive, and just pats it, and he just looks down. What? Like, and that's like that scene, right? Like, she's clearly at that point pretty pregnant. She's like, I'm pregnant. He's like, what? Like,
wait a second. She tells him in that scene, doesn't
she? She does, yeah.
Okay.
He's been gone for a while, clearly.
How many months passed between that scene and the end of the movie?
See, that was another thing that I had to think about in this film. I'm like, how long does time actually... How long has it passed between this battle above Coruscant to Anakin chopping off Mace Windu's arm and leading to the events that... Because it just seems... It seems like a couple days. Yeah, exactly. Seems like a couple days. And I'm like... And I'm watching her like be pregnant, and I'm like, damn, she don't look like she'd be ready to give birth to twins that are in perfectly fine, healthy condition. Like, so I'm like, the timeline, again, it's one of those things that's just weird. But I think the biggest crime here, it's not even their relationship. Their relationship at least is not creepy. So I would argue that it has improved. The biggest thing here is, though, Padme has just been sidelined, completely sidelined. Completely. Your job now is to be pregnant. Oh. Like, what a shit show. Like, after episode 1, she kicks some serious ass, takes back her home planet. Episode 2, she comes here, she's the one's like, let's go get Obi-Wan. She fights a freaking tiger, man. Like, she's badass. She kicks some ass. And then this one, like, you're pregnant. Have fun. And it's like, I'm like, and that's where I feel bad for women. I'm like, clearly it sucks being a woman in Hollywood, man. You just apparently get to be pregnant for a whole movie. Like,
but that's the stupid thing about this.
God, it's annoying.
On the cutting room floor, in a bunch of deleted scenes, there's this whole C plot for Padme
and politics and the politicians.
Her and the politicians, and a bunch of them are actually debating joining the
separatists. Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah.
It's the beginning of the rebellion. Why was that cut?
And that should have been a
finally got interesting.
And that should have been a solid plot point for her, and should have been kept in lieu of some of maybe the other pointless, stupid, annoying things that were still in this film. Because
the
listen, when
fight
you're just
between
like Padme, yes, she can't kick serious ass anymore. Fair enough, she's pregnant with twins. You can't just be rolling around the galaxy shooting tigers and shit. It doesn't work that way. But yes, give her an interesting political storyline then. Like, and I get it, people don't dig the politics. But if you were like setting up the rebellion or the start of the rebellion, this idea, that would have been interesting. At the same
well, I want
time
to
as
say
the
there's
emperor and the empire is growing and developing and coming into its own, the rebellion, the seeds of rebellion have already begun.
I want to say there's even a scene where they're talking about it, and like Anakin at one point calls her out and says that sounds like something a separatist would say.
Yeah,
Like, okay, give it more context and be like, holy crap, she's actually possibly gonna be a separatist.
yeah.
Like,
Well, and she's
give it
spot
some
on, right?
weight.
Like she's spot on. Like, what if the Republic? And that's when Anakin tells her that, because she's like, "What if the democracy we're serving isn't, or the Republic isn't the democracy we think it is?" Like, she's already caught on to what Palpatine's been up to.
And
Like
like,
a lot of the good politicians have in that film,
not
but again, they didn't give them their moment. Like, honestly, if you even would have had that one scene, it would have brought so much more context and nuance to all her other scenes where she's talking about that stuff, and a lot more gravity to it. But instead, they're like, nah, you get to just say some random shit out of nowhere, seemingly, and be pregnant. Like, that's your role. Like, that's just
like
such a shitty role for, like, and
like the
Natalie
scene
Portman's such a good actress, and it just like, Matt, this is the best we could come up with. Come on.
the scene where she's standing in the window brushing her hair and she looks like an elf for some reason.
Like, I'm just, and this whole film, like, the whole reason for Anakin's fall was this was a relationship trying to save Padme, and they just, I don't know if it's they didn't give the relationship enough time, like, or if it wasn't like,
Well, they
and they
didn't.
gave it a lot of time in episode 2, but it was terrible in episode 2, right? So, like, it doesn't really transfer over to this film, but
Like,
I
even
don't
if,
know.
dude, you know what would have made a lot more sense? Beginning of episode 2, all you gotta change is that they're already dating. They're already secretly dating. You get rid of the creepy stuff. You don't have to worry about writing creepy scenes of him trying to seduce her.
And that would
You
have
literally
made,
just
honestly, that would make way more sense. By the end, they get married. They've been secretly dating for years.
for
Now
10
we're
years.
getting married. Well, maybe
Well,
not
not for
10
10
years,
years,
because
but
he was like 9.
9. Yeah.
Just jailbait over here, little jailbait.
Dude, no, the
I'm
stupid
trying not
thing
to
is,
laugh too loud. My wife's gonna
that's,
get mad at me. I'm gonna wake up the baby.
dude, that's the stupid thing, though, is that they set themselves up for a trap because the soonest they could start dating is maybe for 3 years. Maybe
Yeah.
when he turns 16. But even then, no. Because by the time that he's. Because it was what, 9? It was 5 years difference. So 16 and 21. Still kind of weird.
Yeah, but at least, whatever, man.
But, like, I'm
she
just
was
saying, like,
she was 9, macking on. He was 9, and she was like,
I guess,
whatever.
again, I think we agree they should have aged up Anakin from the beginning.
Yeah,
Like,
at the end of the
that's something
day,
we,
yeah,
no
that's
matter
something
how
we
many,
also
how much we
agree.
talk about
Yeah.
this movie, that's something they should have done. And like, honestly, it just you can tell the relationship suffered because of it. Because it's
Well, yeah, like it's just the whole relationship and the idea of it was just written into a hole. Like you said, they wrote themselves into a corner right at the beginning of episode 1. He really did. And then
the
by
same
the time you
thing.
get to 3, it's like, so 1, it's a kind of a 9 and a 16-year-old or whatever, a 15-year-old. I can't remember how old she is. I think 15 or 14?
14.
14. So, like, yeah, 5 years difference. 9 to 14-year-old being all like kids and kind of, oh, maybe there's something there. To episode 2 where it's like, ha, I'm a super huge creeper. And the question is, which one is actually the creep? Like the 20-something-year-old or the 18-year-old? Which one's the real creep here? That's the question. To going episode 3, like, oh yeah, we're pregnant, having babies, blah blah blah. Like, yeah, by the time you get to it, it's just there's not enough character, there's not enough emotional relationship development. And I guess if it would have developed more naturally and in a stronger way in episode 2, it would carry over to 3, but it just doesn't feel like it carries over, right? Because there's no depth in the relationship in episode 2. It was him
Yeah.
being a creep, and then all of a sudden she's like, "No, it's cool, I love you." Like, it was like, wow, okay.
Well, like,
Okay.
I think again that's just where it overall it suffers from just a lack of foresight, and it's even then even in this episode though, all the relationships suffer. Because even his relationship with Obi-Wan doesn't make any sense. He has a vision of Obi-Wan, who's supposed to be his best friend, helping his wife during a time that she's in pain.
Yeah. And he's like, I'm gonna kill you.
He gets mad and jealous about that.
Yeah.
And like to a point where literally Padme's like, oh, Obi-Wan is over here and he was asking about you. He's worried about you. Why was he here?
Yeah.
Why? What's going on? Yes, clearly your wife, who would be theoretically having an affair, as you think, would tell you that the man that she's having an affair with came over because he was concerned about... No, why would you... It's not like Anakin's checking cameras, because apparently cameras exist everywhere in here, and the Jedi can just access them whenever they want. That's a whole thing. But like it doesn't make any sense, because like why, like if it was something shady like that, why would she tell him?
Like, again, when it comes to this trilogy, a lot of the overall character arcs and stuff are fine and are done well, and at least thought out. Like, at least Anakin's, and like
as individuals.
Yeah, as individuals, that's correct. As individuals, the story arcs and the character arcs make sense. Like, specifically, obviously, a lot of time and thought was planned into Anakin becoming Darth Vader. But like, when you connect these, when you put them together, though, and in execution, that's kind of where, it falls apart.
But that's a problem, because theoretically, your movie should be about characters interacting with each other.
Well, if they are going to interact with each other, that should be involved. Yeah. Like, well, especially if you're talking husband and wife and Jedi Master, Jedi Apprentice kind of thing, right?
And also, you're telling me that Obi-Wan is good enough friends with Padme to go over to her house, but he has no clue that they're together?
Yeah. And also, that brings me back to them being the dumbest people in the galaxy. Like, how have the Jedi not figured this out? Clearly, they've been hanging out for 3 months. If Obi-Wan's first thought, like, Anakin's acting weird, I should go ask Padme and see how Anakin's doing. If that's not your first, like, if that's your first thought, clearly there's some shit going on there. Like, and you guys didn't, like, no one was like, oh, no, he's totally banging that senator. Like, no one thought about that. No wonder, listen. Sidious hid under their nose for decades, and I was like, you know what? That's Sith mastery. I was saying that was Sith mastery. Sidious was hiding his power. They couldn't see him. He was clouded by the dark side. I was like, genius. That was all Insidious. Now with this, I'm thinking the Jedi are just idiots. Just totally missed all the red flags, and I'm like, how did they not know? How? Like, these guys were smooching up right in the first couple minutes of getting back from the crash ship. They're like, oh, let's just go smooch behind this pillar, but not really behind the pillar. We're still out in the open. Like, no one.
Palpatine knows. One Sith knows, and the entire Jedi Order doesn't.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I just have this image in my head now. At like, Padme has died. They're all standing over her body, and there's Obi-Wan. He's just like, how could this happen? We're smarter than this.
How did this happen? We're smarter than this. That's so true. Like, but it's just one of those things that just kind of irks me a bit. I think Obi-Wan clearly knows something's going on there, but like, Anakin's his buddy, so like, whatever, I guess. But
he's like, there's such an inconsistency.
It just makes the Jedi look like a bunch of morons, and clearly they deserve to get wiped out. Because like, dude, who's watching this kid? Like, where's his babysitter? I guess it would have been Obi-Wan. God damn it, drop the ball again.
Well, and like, that leads into... See, now I'm trying to remember the order of things that happen in the movie, because again, I forgot to take notes, because I was actually enjoying watching it. I was having fun watching it, not because it's like, oh, this is great, this is good.
Oh yeah, like, we're totally nitpicking here. We're totally just nitpicking the shit out of this right now, but I like do that for times, buddy.
Like, next, was it the whole... Anakin goes and sees Palpatine, which is apparently a thing that's been going on.
Yeah, well,
since episode 2.
And like, yeah, he went and saw him in episode 2, right? Like, that was another relationship. Again, you're talking about story arcs between two characters. That's another one that's hugely impactful in this film, but you never see it develop. Again,
you see it multiple times in this film, but with zero context.
Yes, and you only saw it once in episode 2. Now they're buddy, like, though, like, right, they're coming together all the time. And you're told they have this close relationship. When
can someone
again, like you said, like, if you just would have shifted the movies down, there would have been time to build up those moments, right? Or time to build up those things. But yeah.
So like, Can Palpatine just get someone on the Jedi Council?
Apparently he can.
Like,
Actually, no, he technically can't. He technically can't. I think the Jedi just appeased him so that Anakin would spy for them at the end of the day. And that's kind of what they said, right?
Misjudgment on their part.
Like, yeah, no doubt. That's probably like the word. He did bring back some valuable information before cutting his arm off, but he did bring back some valuable information.
Like, and that's like the weird thing. And like,
all.
I think the other thing that bugs me too is just Anakin's reaction in that scene, because that was such a.
That doesn't, yeah, like that screams Anakin from Episode 2, and not after 3 years of war, like, which would very much mature and put in perspective a lot of things for people.
If he shared that with Obi-Wan in private, which he does later anyway.
Yeah.
Like, it would make more sense.
But like, to make a big scene about it.
Like, that doesn't make any sense. And like,
well,
what Mace Windu puts him in his place so quick, and I love that. Yeah. Have a seat.
Just looks right pissed too. I love it. Good old Samuel L. Jackson. That's what you need him around for. You need someone to look pissed. You hire Samuel L. Jackson because he's gonna look pissed real well and good. Here's the other thing too. When it comes to that scene, I don't know if this is like too much a deep cut, or I don't know if this is kind of like what's going on with like the politics we see in the world, and I don't want to spill over too much into that. But I feel like the scene was just very much implying like Anakin is ultimately the victim of Palpatine's manipulation, right? As is the majority 100%. Of the galaxy. And I think this was a move by Palpatine. Like, obviously he knew Anakin really wanted to be a Jedi Master. Obviously he knew Anakin really wanted to like have this special place, and he felt, again, he mentioned it, he'd mentioned in Episode 2, right? Like, he's being held back by the Jedi. The Jedi wouldn't let him advance. They were scared of like where he would go and all, yada yada yada. The reason he wasn't as successful or as powerful as he could be was because of the Jedi. I think Palpatine just simply gave him a scapegoat and just gave him another reason for it, right? And like, with that moment with Palpatine, like, I just think when Palpatine asked him, he's like, oh yeah, for sure they're gonna let me do this, and he had his heart set on it, and then was very disappointed when he was not granted the rank of Master, because he wanted to be something special.
Dude, it's such young boy fantasy. It's the idea of, oh well, if I make it onto this thing, then I'm immediately like, if I get cast in this play, I'm gonna immediately be the lead.
Yeah,
that's 100% what it's gonna be, and then you get cast as like, you cast in the play, but you're a side character.
Yeah.
What? I
am greater than this.
Be the lead.
But like,
this is outrageous.
But those are the type of people who are like, it's not, the problem isn't me, the problem is you guys, right? And those are the people that often fall prey to like authoritarian like politicians and rulers, right? And leaders of the country. Whether you're talking about Hitler, whether you're talking about Joseph Stalin, or whether you're talking about what are some of those other ones, Saddam Hussein or whatever, like, before they come into those positions of powers, whether you're talking about Julius Caesar in Rome, a lot of these people, they found like scapegoats, right? Like, you need to have a scapegoat, someone to blame. This person's the problem, this person's the problem, not you. You're actually missing out on your life because these people are the problem. Holy and crap. That's exactly kind of what happened, especially in this film. Like, it's actually a very astute, like, the way George Lucas put Palpatine in power and how he took control and how the whole galaxy was all right up and right behind him is because he gave them the enemy. The Jedi betrayed us. We need to wipe them out. We need to take them down. They're the enemy. And majority of the Republic clearly was like, hell yeah, let's get in with it. And that's exactly how authoritarians rise to power. And like, and I don't want to like go into too much politics, but that's very much like what we see happening in the States and stuff. And that's why it stuck out so clearly to me on this watch through. Because you watch Trump saying, these people are the enemy, these people are the enemy. And that's where the people behind him are the people who are saying, we don't have things because of these people.
Except for Trump is literally doing the Democrats are the Jedi. It's literally being
Well, that's more or less it.
From my point of view, the
But, like,
Democrats are evil.
but here's the thing too, Trump. Name your scapegoat, right? He's got Democrats, he's got Mexicans, he's got like immigrants, like whatever, right? Like he literally has everyone and their dog except your classic white, racist guy, probably.
No, don't worry. There's gonna be a speech where he'll come out and be like, white people, they're not great. They're not all terrible. Some of them are good.
Yeah. But honestly, and again, I don't want to get too much into politics, but it's clearly, America right now with the election coming up, like I'm watching it because it's like they're on the precipice of authoritarianism. I can't even say the word, man, right now. Authoritarianism.
He built a wall around the White House.
Authoritarianism. Yeah, use that one, Prosser. That was good.
At the RNC convention, he had most of his family were the speakers out of 12.
Yeah, I know. I
saw
saw.
Same last name.
I saw that. Yeah.
But dude,
like
no, I didn't.
He had the people there who had the guns out at the protest, and again, I don't want to get into it, but if you had 4 more years of that, the way he's using the military police, the way he's rounding up people, and the people who are protesting, he's calling them rioters and looters, and that they're dangerous and violent. He's putting, that's how that's all these things start. And so the American countries and Germany and, Rome, that's how all these things start. And that's exactly what Palpatine did. So actually, when you look at it, and I was very surprised watching it this time because it did stick out to me. And he used the Jedi as the scapegoats, not just for the majority of the Republic and the Senate, who all cheered when Palpatine was like, I'm just gonna be the king of this shit. Cool? And everyone's like, cool. And that's how liberty dies, with thunderous applause. Right? But even for Anakin, he clearly made the Jedi a scapegoat for him. The reason you can't save your wife and not powerful enough, because the Jedi are holding you back, and then gave him literally an example of the Jedi holding him back in his perception.
I agree with you, but I don't think they laid into it heavy enough. I think again, this
it's much more subtle. I literally only really caught it this time in what was going on in the film, is literally because I've been watching what's been going on, and doing some reading and watching, and how do these people, these emperors, more or less, rise to power in our world, and that's exactly how they do it. It's crazy.
I think again, if we had an extra movie, or if we had, again, the movies all shift over.
Yeah.
There almost could have been this interesting thing to see even how the people react to the Jedi,
and
almost have this weird, interesting, negative reaction, like how a lot of people had reactions to Vietnam vets when they came back, and just veterans in general and how they're treated. I think that would have been a bit more interesting too. Is you have this, these guys are technically they're heroes. They're going and saving you, and you have them getting spat on by just regular people being like, "Oh, you're the cause of this war."
Yeah. That would have been an interesting aspect, yeah.
So it's I agree with you, and you totally exploded my brain there, because I had never actually picked up on that.
Yeah.
But I want to see more of that.
Yeah, and you don't, and again, you don't get the context of it, and you don't get the whole picture of it, but you see the result of it at the end of the day, right? And you see tiny little tidbits here and there. But again, nothing that, again, it could have just been executed a little bit better, right? Shown a little bit more, or just had specific things. And, I can't remember if they show it too much in the Clone Wars or not either, but yeah, no, that's totally what he did. It's totally what he did.
What happened in the movie next? My next note is Darth Plagueis, but I feel like that's jumping way ahead. Or is it?
No, that's not jumping too far ahead. Again, and this is where for me, the movie does drag a bit, because it is all these tiny little scenes here and there from Anakin and Padme. Now it's let's establish all these relationships really quickly that we should have established 2 movies ago, through the last 2 movies. But now we only have this movie, so let's put them all in a bunch of scenes together. And that's what this felt like, because you had multiple scenes with the Jedi, multiple scenes with the Council, multiple scenes with Anakin and Palpatine, multiple scenes with Anakin and Padme, and they were just everything. The reason I dislike most of the first half of this film is because we just need to get everything set up in its place for the turn. That's what we need to do. That's our job right now. Just set up these relationships so the turn makes sense.
Well, because I'm trying to think of like everything leading up to getting them on separate planets. Because
well, okay,
at
so
some
yeah,
point,
in that meeting,
at some point, Anakin, or at some point, yeah, the meeting. That's where Yoda.
that's where
says he's gonna go
Yoda,
to
yeah,
Kashyyyk,
he decides to leave. Yeah,
and
he decides he's
Obi-Wan is
going to Kashyyyk.
okay. So wait, did Sidious want Anakin to go after Grievous? Actually,
No, I
or
don't
did
think.
he...
No, he's just putting it in his mind that they should choose you. Like, you're the best one. Why wouldn't they choose you?
Okay,
When
so
like
it's an extra manipulation.
it's manipulation. Yeah.
Okay, no, that makes sense to me. That checks out. I was mildly confused. I was thinking about that, and it's like,
But yeah, no, he didn't actually want Anakin to go after Grievous, and he knew they wouldn't send Anakin after General Grievous. They knew they would send someone else. So like it's just a manipulation. But after that, yeah, and Yoda and stuff. Then you have like the trip with they're taking Yoda to the starship there. And that's kind of where you get Mace Windu's like, well, I don't trust him, and blah 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 blah. Nothing overly interesting there. Obviously, that Anakin and Mace Windu are in conflict now, which is pretty obvious.
hey, you get the important moment of, but it's part of the prophecy, Master.
Oh yeah, the prophecy thing.
Prophecy misread.
Maybe it could have been. We should just shoot this guy now just to be sure. No, okay, we'll just keep rolling.
Because the whole time, Lucas forgot that Luke saved the day, but then was like, wait, no, Anakin technically did, but maybe he didn't. Who knows?
You never know. Well, then technically Rey saved the day at the end of that day. That makes no sense. It would have made sense if Palpatine wasn't still directly alive, because clearly he didn't really technically die. He just Force moved his spirit to a body of a clone, so he didn't.
You know,
the Sith were still there. The prophecy was he would bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith, but he did not destroy the Sith. So he technically did not bring... Technically, if we want to get into specifics, Palpatine brought balance to the Force because Palpatine zapped his own self in the face into oblivion. So, like...
but technically, we discussed this a bit previously. What determines balance to the Force?
Well, for the prophecy, it specifically says, like, the Sith, right? Bring balance to the Force and destroy the Sith. Perhaps. Oh, it says destroy this. Oh, it's... I don't know. I was going to say the Bith, but that's like a whole alien species. Those guys are still around, too.
My theory with this whole thing is, like, it's Star Wars can never be at peace and can never be balanced unless the Jedi and the Sith exist at the same time.
Well, like, and that's,
like,
I think, yeah, I don't really know, or like what equals balance. Like, but then here's the thing, like, we think of balance like one side, dark side, light side, dark side, half, 50-50, even. But what if they weigh differently on the galactic scale of balance?
But if you think about it, what it is it's... And that's why I think that it is them existing at the same time, because that universe is the Star Wars universe. War is in the title of the thing. There always has to be a war, and the idea for me of having both exist at the same time is that they're keeping each other in balance. They're keeping each other in check, because
from just exploding,
the Jedi just want nothing but peace. Well, okay, but is that really balance? Is having no chaos balanced? And they are keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
Yeah.
The Sith want to do the exact opposite and rule everything,
which is also
they both want peace, but they both want peace for different means
for themselves. At the end of the day, and their different ideologies. It's
theoretically, but yeah, Jedi are kind of.
But like, I just think they specifically said in the film, like, to bring balance to the Force was like destroy the Sith was like the idea, and it's like clearly the Sith weren't destroyed. Like, if it was Dark Jedi,
Sith haven't been around for a millennium.
Like, but they have. They've always been around. They've just been in hiding. That was the whole story. Anyway.
Kia Diamundi. Oh my goodness.
But yes, okay. So you get that scene, and then you have, and then yes, it's when you have the weird, like, I don't know, like the weird bubble orchestra thing going on there. The whole
I love
that scene. It's actually a good scene. It is a good scene.
I think it could have been shot more interesting, But the performances
Doth
were awesome.
Plagueis the Wise. Because that's where he finds out Grievous is alive, and then you go continue on after that.
Does he?
Yeah, that's where he tells him, we found Grievous. He's hiding on Utapau.
Okay. But yeah, so with that scene, though, I think the only thing that bugs me is just how it's shot, because it's a lot of
really close
over the
up.
shoulder, over the shoulder, over the shoulder, and I think it almost could have been more interesting if they shot in a way that, like, the bubble opera almost kind of moved with the story of Darth Plagueis, I think.
I get what you're saying, like, kind of a visual representation, almost.
Like, and not like a visual as in, like, this is the opera of Darth
Plagueis. Yeah.
A story that no one would know except for a Sith.
Yeah.
But, like, something to mirror it, right?
Yeah.
Something to parallel it, I think would be an interesting take on it. But I love the performance in there. You kind of see Anakin's curiosity start to peak a bit, especially on the whole, like, why does he know so much about the Force? But, like, he also doesn't question it right away.
Yeah. Which is a strange thing not to question. Like, why would you know so much about the Force?
It takes 3 more meetings, and then he questions it.
Like,
and then it takes Palpatine just being like, I'll teach you the dark side of the Force. And he's like, whoa, I think this guy might be the Sith.
Like, guys, red flag. I think we got the Sith here. Dotson, we got Dotson.
Isn't that what he does? He goes up to Mace Windu and he's like, I think that Chancellor Palpatine
is the Sith Lord we've been looking for. Yeah.
Anakin, he literally says, I will teach you the ways of the dark side of the Force. And you're like, you know what? I think he might be evil. I think he might be who we're looking for.
Yeah.
I have a hunch. I have no solid evidence. Sure.
He never actually said it, but I'm pretty sure.
And then Mace Windu goes off all half-cocked and sure that, you know... It's like, oh, well, Anakin said maybe. I think, yes, we're going to go arrest him.
Let's go. I don't trust this guy. But now he's saying something I like. Okay, let's do it.
No, that's exactly it. Because I want to say Mace Windu asks, like, how are you sure?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know? And it's like, well, he knows the dark side of the Force. Yeah. And it's like, oh.
Well, and that's a red
flag. That's why Mace Windu said, stay here, kid.
Yeah.
Because Anakin's apparently just really dumb.
He's like, we don't need your help. You just keep your ass over here.
I mean, any of the other Jedi who took with him were also kind of useless. So...
Oh, yeah, they all died, like, instantly.
Yeah.
Like, nice job, Jedi Masters. Like, just, guys got lazy, or what was the plan there? Tight spaces, he did the jab thing. Oh, shit, we didn't plan for a block for that. Like, who knows how to block this move? Who knows how to block this move?
He jumped and he spun. He jumped and he did like a twister.
Yeah,
thing,
and then it was like,
it wasn't great choreographed, but
no.
In the meantime, we also got Tarzan Wookiee.
That's true. Yeah,
we
the
did
little
get that. That was...
small little bits of battle on Kashyyyk were pretty interesting.
I enjoyed it. Like, again, anything that has to do with, like, the clones and the droids fighting, I enjoyed.
But again, if you would have had a whole film based around those type of battles, it would have been much more interesting, right? Like, you only get little bits and pieces of the Clone Wars, whether you're talking about Kashyyyk, whether you're talking about Utapau. You know, it's very much the same.
I love how they got that shot of, like, the army of Wookiees, where they just, like, they had 7 guys in 7 different Wookiee costumes. And then they just got them to, like, swap costumes and weapons and stuff like that. Oh, yeah. And then just
multiplied them and stuff. Yeah.
It's literally 7 people.
Yeah.
And then they just multiplied them in different, like, they made them look different enough. Then they just made an entire army. And that's just so cool.
That's the way to do it, man.
Movie magic.
Movie magic.
Did you feel the stuff with Yoda was kind of unnecessary on Kashyyyk?
No, I think it served its purpose.
What was the purpose?
Like, are you talking about him feeling like?
No, him being like.
Or just the fact that he's there.
Yeah, like.
Yeah, I think.
Aside from setting up or seeing Wookiees and being like, "Hey, look, there's Chewbacca."
Honestly, I think it was just one of those moments where it was kind of like, it wasn't plot armor, but it was like, this is just for the plot, so it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, if Anakin would have marched up in the temple and Yoda would have been there, okay, well, Anakin's gonna just get owned right now. Like, no questions asked. That whole temple wouldn't have fallen. You know what I mean? Like, Yoda would have been on that shit. And that's exactly it. Like, they attacked when all the leaders were dead or gone. Like, and that's the big thing with the temple.
It's just something that bugs me is how much.
But I think that's more of like a plot. A plot. I call it plot armor in its own way.
Like, the other Jedi Master should not be a lot weaker than than Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and Yoda.
Yeah, they shouldn't be significantly weaker. Yeah,
and they were. They really are. We'll talk about that in a bit, but like they are really significantly weaker than the main three, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I like it. I think it's as you said, it's a plot point. It's literally just to get Yoda out of there.
Yeah. On to Utapau. Yep.
So we got, in the meantime, well, Yoda's doesn't make sense. At least with Utapau. See, dude, if they didn't kill off Dooku, Yoda going to Kashyyyk, if that's where Dooku was, would have made more sense.
Yeah, that's true. Like having a higher rate target, yeah.
Yep, makes
or even
sense.
just like again, like if like Grievous didn't exist at all, like still having and Dooku was there, having Obi-Wan go would still make sense. I'm just saying, like, Grievous played like not really an important role in this film at all. He just looked cool,
except for this fight,
which looked all right.
I personally, I enjoy it, but not for like that chase segment. The chase segment makes no sense to me. I don't understand why we had to get on like lizard and a motorcycle.
Okay, but speaking of the lizard man, that's one of the other things about this film that are just incredibly obnoxious. Like, that lizard's yell is the most obnoxious thing I've ever heard in a movie. Like, that's like, I wouldn't mind Utapau, I wouldn't mind that scene if that lizard wasn't in it, but that lizard drives me insane. That and the droid voices, like, just like an obnoxious, like, just yell. I can't do it very loud because the baby's sleeping and I'll get in trouble if I do that.
You don't want to know why? You want to know why it's there, Matt? You want to know why it's there?
But like, damn, man.
To sell toys.
Really? A toy like that? Toys. Like, no, the lizard itself. Man. The lizard itself. Sure, that's all fine. But like, come on, man. The noise it makes. We could have found at least like a less obnoxious noise than that. That's all I'm saying. Anyway,
I mean, that's fair. That's
like,
a sound design.
Like,
thing.
The sound design was terrible for that lizard. The lizard itself, I don't have a problem with. Is the sound design for the lizard, and in that noise it makes all the time. How did Obi-Wan even sneak up on those guys with that thing just yapping off all the time? Like, they would have heard him coming 3 miles away. Like, come on. Anyway,
I mean that's a fair point. But
back to Utapau.
Just to say this though, that gets immediately overshadowed by. Hello there.
Hello there.
Immediately.
That's a great moment. Yep.
General Kenobi. Like, and the amount of memes we got from that is just great.
Yeah. Hello there.
Like Winnie the Pooh from Christopher Robin, where it's like Pooh, General Kenobi, and then it's like Winnie the Pooh with 4 arms and lightsabers.
That's so funny. You're right. It's this is like the most memeable movie, probably. Just like there's just so many like I like that. Kind of become iconic lines, I guess.
And then like I like the lead up to that fight.
Who?
General Kenobi.
That cracks me up. That's hilarious. I just keep thinking about that now. Okay, keep going, man. Just ignore me. Just like busting the gut over here.
Like that whole showdown where they're just talking to each other for a little bit, and then he like when Grievous is like, "Hey, soldiers, go and kill him," and then Obi-Wan just like crushes those guys
with like an air conditioning unit.
But then everybody else who has a gun around him completely forgets that they could have also opened fire on him.
Yeah, at the same time. And
But
clearly
then
Obi-Wan did not like even account for that. He's like, he's probably gonna send his guards after me. Oh yeah, there's all these guys with guns. I would have really been screwed there.
They're so uncivilized.
Like, plot armor.
One of our favorite things in this household is literally after the clone army shows up, and they're about to fight again, and General Grievous is the whole like, army or not, you must realize you are doomed.
Yeah.
And then it gets like extreme
Close on their eyes. Yeah.
Oh, I don't think so.
Like, just like, why?
Like literally in our house, we will actually like, we'll say stuff like that to each other, and then look at each other, cup our hands so it looks like the screen.
Yeah.
And we'll say, oh, I don't think so. while cupping our eyes to give us that framing. Like it's so good, and it makes no sense. It's supposed to be a Western moment, but it makes no sense.
It's just ridiculous, yeah.
But I love it. I love it so much. And then they fight a bit, and then they fight for a bit and all that kind of stuff, and then they run away.
And that's another thing too, where that fight too, that's another thing where it's like, man, I love the concept and the idea of it, but the execution was not great. Like, the fight itself was very, very hard to follow. 4 Arms Grievous, really, really cool, but just how it was shot and framed and the choreography behind it just made it seem it was messy. It was very messy.
When he was fighting with 4 arms, he didn't fight like someone with 4 arms.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like none of them were
really quick.
None of those arms were like synchronized at all. It was just like, I'm just gonna flail my arms at you and hope you don't cut them off. And Obi-Wan's like, no problem, man. I'll just chop your arms off one at a time, I guess.
Like, literally, there was nothing like there. That's the thing, is like that lightsaber fight was just over so quickly.
Well, they did the cool thing with like the lightsaber windmill thing going, you know, like lightsaber saws, and then they're just like, after that, Grievous has no other tricks. That's his one trick. He killed at least 4 different Jedis with this one trick. Like, but that's it. Like, figure it out. Like, come on, guys. Like, it's just the choreography for it. The fight itself was not great. In concept, it would have been really cool, but the execution, that was another thing that was just not good.
After spending the entire second episode lecturing Anakin about not losing your lightsaber.
Yeah. He loses his lightsaber. Why did
Obi-Wan lose his lightsaber? Which, like that's just a question. The answer that I have is because the second half of that fight is my favorite, and I love it. I love that they have a fist fight with a robot. I think that is the greatest thing in Star Wars.
And it's played for comedy, right? Like, it is, because they know it's ridiculous. He tries to kick it.
With his shin.
Yeah.
He tries to leg sweep the robot with giant metallic talons that helped him crawl up the side of a ship. And Obi-Wan saw this happen, and he's like, no, I can kick him. And then he hurts his leg. And also 2 minutes after, like, Grievous almost punched his face into the side of the ship.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. And just how brutal that final blow is with the blaster. He literally makes Grievous explode.
Yeah.
Like, I love it.
Like Obi-Wan honestly could have used the Force, lift him up, and threw him off the, like, balcony. That would have been the end of Grievous.
Exactly. Could have been
a 10-second fight. Yeah.
But literally, just honestly, if I could pick one section of episode 3 to watch on repeat for the same length,
it would be that.
Yeah, it would just be that fight. If I had to watch the entire length of episode 3, but just a small segment of it over and over again for that 2.5 hour long time span, I'd watch that fist fight.
Oh, I do not agree with you. Like, I think it's played off for like comedic elements, and that's fine. And it was funny, and then he shot him, and it was, like, so uncivilized or whatever, right? Like, it was funny, but I wouldn't watch that for, like, 2.5 hours. Like, not even close, man.
Just for the laughs, I'd watch it, because the rest just makes me sad.
Yeah, no. So like, the fight with Grievous was just, again, there's just a lot of things in this film that I'm like, in concept, really, really great. Execution, not so much. And I'm not saying, like, I hate this movie. But like I said, I'm just not as big of a fan of the first chunk of this film. But we'll continue on, because I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here. Like, I'm not just trying to be like, wow, this movie was okay, but I hate everything about it. Like, I don't hate it. I just think it could be better. I think it could have just been better. That's all. All right, guys, and that's where we're going to end this part of the discussion. This is part 1 of our 2-part Star Wars Episode 3 discussion. We're having a great time here. I think so.
Would it be a Star Wars special if it wasn't a two-parter, Matt?
Yeah, that's exactly it. They always got to be two-parters. So that's going to be it for us. Ethan, quickly tell these people, these fine people, where they can find you.
All right, you guys can find me on YouTube. You can also find me on Instagram on Ethan R. Hill. That is the only Ethan R. Hill that is on Instagram is Ethan R. Hill. And that's me. So you can find me there. And otherwise, I have some news hopefully coming up in the coming weeks that I can share with you guys. But right now, everything's kind of a bit quiet. Go check out my movie through damnedrights.com. You can find a link to Real House. And go watch my movie.
Slick. And you can find me on Twitter at Storytellers, the number 4, capital L. So Storytellers is supposed to be for life. So capital 4. Jeez. 4 and then a capital L. So you find me on Twitter at Storytellers4L. And you can find me on YouTube at Storytellers for Life. That's my new channel that I'm working on building. Progress is a little bit slow during the get back to the scheduled life and everything like that and looking after kids. It's been great, but it's been slow going, but that's still building and it's just going to be a really fun experience. And I'll share a little bit more with you as we keep going along, but that's where you can find me on YouTube and on Twitter there. But that's it for us tonight. We will see you guys next week for the second part of our Star Wars Episode 3 special. I'm Matt Black.
I'm Ethan R. Hill.
And we'll see you guys later.
Tune in next week.
Bye-bye.
So long.
Toodaloo.
And may the Force be with you.